to the broadcast. I've got with me today my newfound friend Robert Orr of Manchester, England, who's going to tell us about a project, one of the most astonishing projects I've come across. I've looked at, I was counting them the other day, Robert, I've seen 1,100 business plans in the last 3 years, of which most of them don't really get me too excited. Not only does this get me excited, this has me flabbergasted. When I first realized the magnitude of what you're trying to do here, this is a project about fertilizer and biogas, but it's not just any project. I don't think I've ever seen a project that had a larger and more immediate imperative, something that really needs to be done. I've seen projects all over the world that have to do with that take dozens and dozens of different type of feedstock and turn them into fuels or electricity or whatever, and they all have some merit. But I don't know that I've ever come across something that is screaming out to get done like this. Having said that, as I think the audience is about to find out, there are challenges associated with this. So let's just jump right into this thing. This first slide here is the people at the bottom are Robert on the left. That's not a Miller Lite you have there, is it?
No. Well, remember, we're in Pakistan. We're on water. We're not on alcohol, I'm afraid.
I was just kidding. So that's you on the left. And we're going to talk a little bit about that gentleman on the right when we get into this thing. But why don't we just kind of just go right through this presentation? This is a project. Landhi is a distant suburb of Karachi in southern Pakistan, as I understand it. And there's a huge problem associated with the captive animals. There are 400,000 buffalo in a space of a couple square kilometers that are used for milk and meat, that are making a considerable mess, and that's pretty much where I'd like to just turn it over to you, Robert.
Okay, yeah. Well, hi. I'd like to welcome the audience and anybody who's signed in. I appreciate that, and nice to talk to you. Karachi basically is the biggest commercial city in Pakistan, and 20 million people need vast amounts of milk and vast amounts of meat, and so the colony, which is just on the coast, basically off Karachi, has 400,000 buffaloes, about 2,000 farms, each farm around about 200 animals to 400 animals, and these are what supply all the milk, about 3 million litres a day to Karachi. Of course, they supply also vast volumes of dung. And my job is to basically take the 8,000 tons of dung. This doesn't include the liquid. It doesn't include urine. This is just pure dung, straight from the backside of the animal. We basically take that, and the project is going to, number one, compost it. But before we compost it, we're going to create biogas from it, from the liquid segment of it. So we have to separate the solids and the liquids to generate the biogas. The biogas then will provide CNG, that's compressed natural gas. It's the most popular transport fuel in Pakistan. As well as that, biogas also contains lots of carbon dioxide, about 30% in our case. That can be made into to liquid that then can make dry ice, and that provides refrigeration for the distribution of food, because Pakistan, 50% of everything it grows never leaves the field because there's no refrigerated transport. This is a way of doing that. So not only do we have compost, we have energy for transport, we have refrigeration for trucks, and then at the end of the process, we also have vast volumes of liquid fertilizer, natural liquid fertilizer, which badly needed worldwide, but certainly in Pakistan. The cost of urea, the cost of DAP, all the chemical fertilizers is phenomenal. Not least
Robert, let me just interrupt you for just a second. That's the good news. Yes, exactly. I would like to frame the problem a little bit here. You mentioned that there are 8,000 tons of dung. That's a day, correct?
Yes. Absolutely. Every day,
So,
day in, day out. They never take a day off.
right. So you can, I would like the audience to just kind of take a second and let that sink in. So that's 8,000 tons a day generated by 400,000 buffalo in a couple square kilometers. So I did the math on this when we first had this conversation. I'm sitting here in a little office that's, probably 12 by 12. That's on average, I would have 2 buffalo in my office, and multiply that out over several square kilometers, and that is producing currently what you're looking at here, which, as I understand, actually I'm going to ask Robert to explain this slide, and then actually let me do this. Let me go to this next one. This is the river. This is dung making its way, forming its own river, and making its way south into the Arabian Sea, where it's flowing out and becoming this. So do you want to just take us through that, Robert?
Yeah, sure. If you look at that area, once they've piled the dung up outside the farms, and they can pile no more, the only way they can get rid of it is to flush it through the storm drains, and that goes into streams and rivers, and they arrive in the Arabian Sea. And if you look at this slide here, you'll see a very dark mass, the brown mass. That is effectively buffalo liquid manure going out into the sea. And for 4 to 5 kilometers, there are no fish, nothing alive. And the fishermen in this area have to go out 4 hours a day before they reach anything that they can fish. When they come back in, they've got to take it back over solidified buffalo manure to their village and to be distributed. When that stuff outside the farms is dried, the only thing they can do to get rid of it is burn it, which means you've got E. coli, you've got pathogens flying all over the area. And this is not burnt for fuel. This is burnt just to get rid of it, just to be able to put some more there. You've seen that this scene here is you see the streets. Now this is when we've had a bit of rain, which is unusual there. But this is a typical street in Landhi. You cannot go anywhere without walking through manure. And therefore it has the highest infant mortality rate because nobody can get away with it in Pakistan. It has 70 to 80% of all the health problems are caused by this. And if you see the slide on the right, this is the problem. You see the seashore here where the buffalo are now. That's sand. The rest of it is solidified buffalo manure. And that is a terrible situation.
Yes, well, and you can imagine the stench of this thing, even if this weren't causing health problems and the other kind of atrocities, you can imagine what this thing smells like for miles and miles around. So this is, I made this presentation, as I was telling Robert before we started here, I made this presentation to my wife, and she was appalled. But appalled is just too mild a word to describe the natural reaction of anybody to a situation as disgusting. So especially in an environment in the 21st century in which something can be done about it. If we were having this conversation 100 years ago, I don't know precisely what we would say, but the fact that something can be done about this means that something should be done about it, and that's where Robert comes in. You want to just take us through a few slides of our, this is the life-changing enterprise.
Sure. Well, when we're looking at the area, the first thing we want to do is we want to stop this happening. In other words, we want to corral all that manure, all that buffalo dung into one place. By taking around about 50 acres of land, we can separate the liquids and the solids and immediately compost those solids. That gives us, within 20, 30 days, that gives us a good organic fertilizer, soil amendment, you might call it, which is badly needed in the area and badly needed in Pakistan. Bearing in mind that because all this organic matter has destroyed the mangrove forest that were along the seashore, there's a lot of encroachment onto the land. So there's a lot of salinity in the land, and that land can be basically reformed with this compost, and halophytes can be grown. This is salt-resistant plants that will actually feed those animals, because at the moment, all that stuff comes from 100, 200 miles away. The liquid, of course, it's valuable for all over Pakistan. And so what we're doing effectively, just purely because this plant, this colony is here, we're looking at the largest, we've become the largest supplier of compost and liquid fertilizer, I expect, in the world. I'm not sure if there's anything bigger there. It'll certainly be one of the biggest biogas plants in the world, because we're talking here around about 16,000 tons a day of liquid.
It's amazing. The opportunity, I see these biomass and biofuels things all the time that contemplate a fraction of this. But this, so not only are we ameliorating a horrible problem, but we're becoming the biggest single producer of biofuel and biofertilizer. So,
yeah.
Is there anything on this slide that you want to cover?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you look at the you go away from just the compost and the fertilizer, which is fairly, people would know what to do with that, and it's fairly regular. And then you look at the CO2. Now, most people think CO2 is going into the atmosphere. That's terrible. We're stopping it going into the atmosphere, but we're actually taking it and we're producing dry ice, and that dry ice is going to effectively increase the production, the usable production of food in Pakistan significantly, because it's basically giving away to refrigerate it. And if you look at other uses for gas, CO2 gas, cash crops in greenhouses, mushrooms in tunnels, basically this stuff promotes 40% more growth than if you grow without it. So it's very, very useful material, and we're going to be producing 40,000 tons a year of it. There used to be quite a lot of money in the carbon credits as well. Those are less now, but nevertheless, it'll be 1 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent that we're going to stop reaching the atmosphere. And whilst you can put a price on that with carbon credits, it's not much at the moment, but the benefit is still there.
Yes. Good. So that was slide 7, which I throw in for the guy who has to put this together and make the archive. Okay, going on here, slide 8. So we're talking about organic fertilizer first, before we get into the biofuels, and here we're going to explain that.
Sure. I mean, the reason we go into this first is because you can believe it. It's a huge logistic job. I mean, you can imagine collecting this stuff. It's 2 trips a day into 2,000 farms. So, when we have tractors with trolleys and trailers and front loaders, we go into the farm, we take it out, we take it outside, put it into the trolleys. And so you've got hundreds of these things running around. The first thing you want to do is establish the logistics of that. And you'll have a profitable project as well, because just the compost alone is worth about $120 million a year. So you've got a project that's in the region of $100 million in total. You can start that project for about 25% of that. And one of your most valuable products comes first. It's quite unusual, because most things you spend the bulk of the money first and you earn a little bit, but the bulk of the money comes at the end. This is the 80-20 rule writ large.
That's fantastic. And I go back now to slide 2, the one with the picture of this. We talked about you, Robert, with the Miller Lite here. I'm just kidding. On the left, the gentleman on the right is actually running a pilot plant showing. I mean, this is obviously a good idea, and people can see that theoretically this can be done, but actually it is being done as we speak, just in a very small scale. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I mean, the gentleman there is Mukhtar Shaka. He is actually the General Secretary of the Karachi Dairy Farmers Association, one of the few educated people in the colony and one of the few with good English. And we've actually situated our pilot plant on his farm, and we have a full-time team running that plant, employed by us, but with his cooperation. And of course, he gets the benefit of free electricity and energy for his farm. We clean it, we obviously take all his manure, so his is about the cleanest farm in the colony. But he is very influential in the area, and he has been very supportive to us. And in fact, I was telling Craig earlier that he understands the people there precisely. Okay, so next slide. Organic fertilizer market, local, international, it's everywhere. We've also got to bear in mind that the G8 promised to spend $20 billion on sustainable farming under the guise food security. At least a third of that has got to come down to fertilizers. And we'd like to think that we could provide a big portion of that.
Well, I don't see why not. I'm hoping. Are you hoping to? How are you hoping to capture some of that $20 billion?
Well, we're already talking to people in Rome at the FAO, the organisation that would actually distribute these funds.
Okay.
And they're very excited about it because there just isn't anywhere that they can get this volume, especially the liquid fertilizer, which travels very easily. And bear in mind, we're on the coast. We're only 4 kilometres from Port Cassim, so you could arguably just pipe this stuff to the port. Compost isn't so much something that you'd export. That's more a local product because it doesn't travel well. It's very bulky and it's very light, and it's not high value. So that we would say we would concentrate on Pakistan with that. But certainly the organic fertilizer, it's great export opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so speaking to slide 10. Yep.
Once again, if you look at organic crops, typically in the supermarket here in UK or in America, you might have to pay 50% more for organic crops, but at source you can get 3 or 4 times the price for organic crops as you can for normal chemically fertilized crops, for the simple reason that they're exportable. And once you've got an exportable crop, then the value of that crop increases significantly over the local price. So we can actually give farmers the opportunity to increase the value of their crop significantly by going organic. And we're finding that that's actually quite an attractive proposition.
And you've got a land reclamation issue as well.
Yeah, in the land reclamation, because of the problems that we've explained about the manure going into the sea, the one thing that stopped a lot of this salinity and encroachment were the mangrove forests, and they've gone. There are perhaps 1 or 2 odd ones there now, but they haven't. So a lot of the land is saline, and it's becoming increasingly saline. By using compost and our liquid fertilizer, we can actually reclaim this land, and by promoting halophytes, which are, there's almost an equivalent halophyte for each of the non-halophytes, and a halophyte is just simply a salt-resistant plant. It can grow in saline land. With this project, we can actually grow animal feed locally and energy crops, because once again, energy crops are not as demanding as crops for human consumption, and therefore there's a lot of crops that we can grow to produce biomass, and that biomass can either be used for generating energy, either by being burnt, by being used something like slow pyrolysis. You can provide energy, or you can provide carbon black. We call it terra preta, which you might be more familiar with. So
like
there's
biochar?
huge opportunities here.
Good. All right. Here's a graphic.
This is our product range. iGrow is our UK company. We're using UK technology to formulate different fertilizers for different applications. So, for instance, if you want to grow rice, it's a different product than if you want to grow wheat. So we're able to modify using natural ingredients. We're able to modify the basic what you would call a digestate product into a liquid fertilizer by adding those natural components that are required for a particular crop. And you'll see the difference. The international name iGrow is easily recognized. The Grow Rich appeals more. We've done a lot of research on the names of things, and for a Pakistani farmer who cannot read English, rich is something he wants to be, grow is something he knows very well. and we spent quite a lot of time coming up with our actual product names.
It makes a lot of sense to me.
And these were the two names that we found had the best acceptance.
Yep. Good. All right, on we go. Slide 12, I think we've probably already covered, but the G8 has made a significant commitment to this. Anything else you want to add on that?
Well, the commitment is there. Of course, the challenge is that quite often these commitments are made and not carried through. So we have to. We always regard any announcement by almost any government body as a wish list rather than an actual commitment. But there has actually been a real commitment to this made, and we expect that we will take our share of it. But of course, until we start the project in a sizable way, we're not a target for them. But
right. So in other words, it needs a kind of equity investment, and you're going to get to talk about this a little bit at the end about the money that you have committed to this. But the bottom line is that the government will come in, or at least we hope government will come in, but not at such an early stage. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, for instance, we have Asian Development Bank, we have IFC, the financial arm of the World Bank, who are very excited to come in. But they want to come in after investors have committed themselves. And they can provide the bulk of the funding, around about 65%.
Yep. Good. Here are a couple of slides on the benefits that we're talking about here, and there are so many of them that extend in so many different directions. If you just want to whip through these, that'll be great.
Yeah, sure. The obvious improvement of life for the people of Landhi is taking it away. You've got clean air. You've got the removal of the smells. In my case, it doesn't matter because I have no sense of smell. So I'm probably the best guy in the world to be doing this job.
Well, that's for sure.
And obviously the sea, you've got the fishing industry, it's going to benefit from that. There's just a whole raft of things. We're actually going to buy the manure from the farmers. This is unusual. They're spending money to get rid of it now. They have to flush. They spend money on diesel to flush it down these drains once they've stacked what they can outside. We're actually going to be paying them more to actually buy it than they're spending now. So they're making they'll take about $4 million a year for the manure, but they're actually saving an additional $6 to $7 million a year by not having to pump it out of their farms. We're obviously going to create local jobs, and these jobs are going to be in the lower skill range, collecting manure, driving tractors, things that they're very familiar at the moment. But this is approximately 800 jobs. It's a huge logistical task. There'll also be jobs for graduates from the local universities. We have some very good universities, and in fact, going back to the halophytes, we have a world expert in Karachi University on halophytes who has actually got a department devoted to it. So a lot of that infrastructure is already there. When we looked at the CSR, or corporate social responsibility aspects of it, we spoke to the women, we spoke to the guys, step up the hand together, and overwhelmingly the women wanted a maternity clinic because I've explained the problems with infant mortality there. And so that's one of our commitments, that we're going to build a 20-bed maternity clinic. There's actually a building there that we can use. We're going to equip it. And,
okay.
So that's what we're doing for them.
Okay. The reason I put this up, this slide up on the webinar, one of our attendees is having trouble hearing this and is having trouble with a passcode for the audio, so I just wanted to display that for a couple minutes so that he and anybody else who's having a similar problem can jot that down and log on. All right. And so here in our quest to just simply talk about some of these benefits, here another 5 or 6 of them.
Sure. The men, of course, wanted to make sure the animals were okay. And they have no way of testing feed, because quite a lot of times you get feed coming in. And a couple of years ago, we lost 1,500 animals simply because somebody had taken bread from the hospital bins, mixed it in with various other things, and sold it as feed to the farmers. And of course, there was swabs and everything in there. with 1,500 animals died, and another 1,500 were barren, and therefore had to be killed. The animals, obviously, and the people are just going to be more healthy because when it's not being burnt anymore. Why would you burn something that you could sell?
Right.
We've also decided to put 10% of the profits to set up local enterprise to do value-added products because we're in the biggest buffalo colony in the world, and we're getting buffalo milk. Nobody's making mozzarella. It's an obvious thing to make, cheese. Nobody's doing it. So we're going to be helping set up little businesses for local enterprise groups to do that. As well as, obviously, we've got the marine pollution, which we've discussed at length, and probably doesn't need discussing anymore.
Right.
And we've also discussed the fishermen. It's one of these few win-win for all, with all the benefits.
Yes, exactly. So take us through the process here a little bit. This is the composting process.
Sure. What you're seeing there is I think the largest windrow turner in the world. It'll lay a windrow turner which is 7 meters wide. I think that's about 23, 24 feet, and about 11 feet high. And basically these are laid out in sections almost about 200 meters long. That's about 700 feet. And every 2 or 3 days the windrow is turned over for the simple reason that if it's not, it'll set fire because you get heat generated inside by anaerobic digestion.
Right.
We also are making our own natural inoculums which we can add to the compost, A, to make it mature more quickly, and B, to make it more beneficial for the plant uptake. So that's from the composting side, it's a relatively simple process. This is not rocket science,
yes,
but it's being done on a huge scale.
Mm-hmm. And here's a slide on logistics. Yeah,
I mean this is low tech. You're looking at a tractor with a front loader and a tipping trolley. That's our transport.
Yep.
And every day they'll be traveling, and we're not talking about an 8-hour day now. We're talking about a 12 to 16-hour day, and that's two shifts every day. And they'll take it to the plant. The plant's going to be about 3 or 4 kilometers from the colony.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what are we offering participants here?
Well, besides the opportunity to invest, we're offering it's being able to be part of one of the largest environmental projects in the world, because we're talking about not just taking this stuff into our plant and producing all these great things. We're talking about cleaning up an area that currently is critically unsafe. You know, if you just look at the fish, I've been sick more than once by eating fish in Karachi, and I ended up not doing it. Fish is a huge part of the Pakistanis' diet, and there's a lot of illnesses that are caused by this. This will be cured. In terms of the package, we're flexible on how people come in. We don't mind loan finance, we don't mind equity, we'd love grant. So there's an opportunity for almost every type of organisation or individual to be able to participate. Mm-hmm. And the benefits will be visible. It's very profitable in capital terms, in fiscal terms, but also in all the other social and health terms.
Yep. And this one we had jumped back to show the picture of that gentleman, but this is the pilot plant here.
That's right. It's very small. It's probably you mentioned you've got a 12 by 12 room. This is probably 50 by 50. Mm-hmm. It's very small and very compact, and it will process 8 tons per day. And of course, the final plant will be 1,000 times bigger than this. We've been running it now for about 3.5 years, and we've been getting some good results. But more to the point, we've been having lots of visitors from overseas, from Pakistan. It's created confidence and created an expectation there, and proof that this can be done, that something can be done, and more to the point, that there is somebody willing to do it.
Yes.
I was originally asked by the Alternative Energy Development Board of Pakistan to assist with this project because it seemed to be going nowhere after about 10 years. And I was so knocked out by it that I put almost $1 million of my own money up.
I was going to ask you about this.
4 or 5 years, because I just could not envisage that this would not be done.
Right. So, well, that's quite a commitment. I guess we're going to talk here a little bit about the rest about the current status of this thing and what needs to take place from here.
Sure. Well, the pre-feasibility was undertaken at great expense by Asian Development Bank and paid for by World Bank. The company that did it was from New Zealand, and they put the report together, but nobody actually did anything about implementing it. And this is one of the big problems in Pakistan and a lot of the, developing countries. There's lots of feasibilities, lots of pre-feasibilities, but when it comes to actually implementing it, it needs somebody to actually say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put my money up to do this, because I believe it should be done, and I believe it can be profitable, and that other people will come along and support. When I went to the colony, when they asked me to look at it, this was in May 2007. I looked at these people and I thought, if I lived here, I would just want to go to sleep and never wake up. But it was explained to me by Shocker that this is all these people have ever known, 60, 70 years.
Yes.
And so my reaction to that was that we must solve this problem. And
good for you.
Here we are 5 years later. We've had a pilot plant that's been running for a while, and we're now looking for people to join this project.
Yes, I completely understand. I guess we're going to get into the financials. I think I took a lot of the detailed stuff out of this just because I didn't think it would be germane for this webinar. But I'm hoping that I left some of it in because I'm sure people listening to this want to know, are we talking about hundreds of millions of dollars? And the answer is no. It's actually a reasonably, you can get a lot done for a fairly reasonable amount of money, it seems to me. But maybe we'll come to that in a coming up slide. We have a couple of them left here. So you want to talk about observations?
Sure. One of the issues with Pakistan is desperately short of energy, both in terms of power and for homes and business, and in terms of transport fuel, because it doesn't have enough of anything. What we came to the conclusion was that we should use our gas to create CNG for transport fuel, because that's what's badly needed in the colony and in the surrounding area. The problem with generating electricity with it is that you have got to depend on a local monopoly paying you for that electricity, and that's something that we didn't want to be in that position, because there are lots of producers of electricity who have just shut down their plants because they haven't been paid. And it's called circular debt. The government owes the generator of the electricity. The generator of the electricity owes his fuel suppliers. So we decided we didn't want to get into all that. We just wanted to sell directly to the end user.
That makes sense.
But if we wanted to, we could generate 24 megawatts.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at the return on investment, for the moment, if we just move away from the fact that all the humanitarian benefits, we have a project that effectively has four pretty solid income streams: liquid, fertilizer, compost, energy, and refrigeration. Between those, if we just leave the liquid out for the moment, because that's right at the end of the process, fairly quickly we can be talking around about $120 million in sales of the compost, and about probably 1/3 of that in the other, the refrigeration and energy products. There's not many projects that have so many benefits that can actually be done for an total investment of less than $100 million.
Right, and speaking to that, let me just put up this slide about the investment.
Okay, I'll run through that. Effectively, what we're looking at doing is initially starting at as we said, the logistics and the composting as the first stage. That requires around about $25 million to do 100% of the manure there. Sensibly, we decide that we'll start with 50%. That's about 4,000 tons a day. And that's about $13 million. The first $1 million is basically development funding, further development funding, I should say. Then we've got about $4 million as equity. And we've had strong indications from Asian Development Bank and various other development institutions that they would provide the loan finance of about 66%.
Okay.
So
we're talking $5 million.
We're looking at $5 million now. That would be then that would then switch on an additional $8 million.
Yes.
And that would allow us to do the first stage of the project, which is the compost, because that encompasses a lot of these environmental problems that we're talking about now will be solved just by the compost stage. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the earnings that we're looking for this, to then develop the rest of the project, will come from this compost stage. So it's a catalyst.
Yes.
But at the same time, on its own, it's a very profitable catalyst.
Yes. As you pointed out, the whole enterprise of renewable energy, when you look at the financing thing, I mean, obviously, I'm oversimplifying when I say this, but if you're burning coal, the cost of having a coal plant over its lifetime of 40 years is realized over that 40-year period, unlike solar or wind, which is realized on day one. So, in other words, if there's a cost of money, that makes a huge disadvantage to solar and wind. This is ironically, this is kind of the opposite. In other words, you get most of your money back very quickly.
Yeah, it's a dichotomy, really, isn't it? Because we have this situation whereby we can for the roughly 20-25% of the project, the total project cost of $100 million, we can actually access $80 million, 80% of the benefits. It's almost an inverse percentage, and that is unusual. I've certainly never worked on a project where I've had that happen, but I think that is basically because of the unique situation we have there.
That's great. Well, let's sum this up. Let's talk to the audience about obviously anybody with $5 million and an appetite for solving one of the most egregious problems facing the Eastern Hemisphere should contact me and get a hold of Robert through me. So just hit the contact button on 2 Green Energy, and I'll make sure that you're immediately connected with Robert. But there are probably other messages we want to leave here. What would you say in summary, Robert?
In summary, I would like to say that, like you, I've never come across a project here that has so many things that are a win-win for everybody, for the investors, for the people in Pakistan, and especially in people in Landhi, for the animals. The situation for the animals is going to be significantly better. Marine life, environment, they're all there. And
yes.
It's rare that you find that.
I completely agree.
I would like to invite people to become a part of that. And now, one thing we haven't discussed, which I'll very briefly mention, is Pakistan. We've kind of talked about the great opportunity. We've talked about the challenges physically. But there are challenges with people actually being willing to invest in Pakistan because of the recent problems there. But in actual fact, Pakistan is like any other country. There are a minority of people there and who are causing problems. Where we are, people are too interested in earning a living and surviving to be worried about all that. So I'd say to anybody who has concerns about Pakistan, this is an area well away from most of the problem areas, and you've got a very motivated workforce and a very motivated area because they need this.
Yes.
And they can't imagine it being done because they've seen it this disaster for so long, but we want to make that difference, and you can be part of it.
Fantastic. What a great note on which to leave this. Robert, thanks very much. I've been looking forward to this thing, and I hope this, this is probably, I don't know, we've done at least 25 or 30 of these webinars over the last couple of years, and I don't think I've ever been touched more deeply. This is fantastic stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated, and I do appreciate the opportunity of putting the message out there.
Very good. Talk to you again soon.
Cheers.
All right, and to you.